Welcome to another Online Personals Watch CEO interview. Today I'm joined by Fran Maier, who is the former general manager of Match.com, the very first actually, and the co-founder of Match.com. So Fran, welcome to the interview.
Happy to be here, Mark.
So we just interviewed Gary Kremlin last week.
Yes.
And of course you're the co-founder and the very first GM of Match.com. How did you get involved with Match.com, and what's your side of the founding story?
You know, Gary and I are good friends, and we were back then. We had gone to business school together down at Stanford. And Gary was playing around with this idea of a company called, actually, Electric Classifieds. And it was online classified marketplace. And he was looking for somebody, and we connected at our reunion, to run Match.com. And he wanted somebody who really knew how to market to women. And at that point in time, I had been working at the Clorox company on brands like 409, and then I was at California's Automobile Club. And I had that general good marketing experience, and I think Gary wanted to add that to the portfolio. Gary, early on, I'll give him credit for this and for me taking it on, really thought that it was important to get women to Match.com, and by getting women to Match.com, the men would follow. So that was sort of our guiding strategy, and we tried to put our initial product features and so on with the idea of, would this make it attractive to women? So for example, and you know, websites now, online dating sites use it all the time. The engineers would come to my office and say, well, we want to match on weight. And I looked at them and said, no, you're not going to do that. We're going to do body type, okay? We were one of the first the initial idea from the VCs and Gary and the team was to charge per email or per contact. And I thought that came off too much as a meat market. And I knew that from my experience at the Automobile Club, people like the idea of membership. So I pushed hard that we would have a membership model. And of course, that's the prevailing model in most online dating sites as well. And I think the other thing that was important is that early on, we brought in Trish McDermott, who spent many years at Match.com. But the idea was we needed to give people advice. We needed somebody that they could go to, not just to protect us because we were concerned about people's safety, women's safety especially, but to give them advice to know how to use this better. So I joined in. I think I was number 5 from the very beginning. I focused on Match. There were other people focused on some of the other verticals. And, you know, I think Gary talked a little bit about our venture capital people just didn't get that we were creating, you know, we weren't just putting personals online, which back then especially had a very, very negative connotation of 900 numbers and gangbangs and stupid stuff, right? But that we were really reinventing something. And I think, unfortunately, it took a while for them to get it. And remember, this is 1994-5. We were before anybody knew about brand or social networking on the internet. Nobody knew this. And sometimes the problem is being first. Of course, the people who bought Match.com subsequently did very well.
And what were the companies back then? It was Friend Finder in '96, so actually it was webpersonals.com. And Matchmaker.com and Match.com.
There were there were a lot, but they all basically did the 900 number model. They weren't very sophisticated about the marketing and the customer acquisition. They didn't really work on any sort of partnerships. And I don't think they thought about targeting women as the bullseye. And you know, what I remember learning back then is we were doing very well with attracting women and keeping them. And one of the things that I think was a real eye-opener, and this kind of gets to the overall industry, is that once we started to charge, our percentage of women, which was much higher than anybody else's, back then it was probably about 20%. Can't remember exactly. And now I think it's lost the stigma it had then, so it's a much higher percentage of women on websites, on online dating sites. But once we started to charge, our percentage of women went up at least 5 points in a matter of a week. And it's because it validated that the men were serious and were interested. And I think that was an important learning for us.
So on that point, you were actually VP. You went on after Match.com to work as a VP of Women.com. What do women want from iDating sites that many dating sites are missing, do you think?
I think that that whole idea that we had at Match.com of safe and anonymous and fun is really important. And I think safety is of course, you're going to take care of that. You're going to, and any respectable online dating site gives you enough controls to control pictures and messages and blocking and filtering. All that's, I think, fairly sophisticated now. But I do think there needs to be some more fun in terms of ways to interact, and we're seeing some of that happen nowadays. And I also think that idea of advice, and maybe more specialized advice. So as a woman, you could guess, my kids are almost out of the nest. I'm single now. I'm divorced. I'm new to online dating. I need different advice than a 30-year-old who's looking more for a husband. And I need a different website than I think somebody who's looking, So it takes some time to kind of filter through the different kinds of online dating experiences, the do's and the don'ts, the new etiquette. And I think it can vary by not just what you're looking for, whether or not it's a casual relationship or marriage, but also sort of what stage of life you're at. Does that make sense to you?
Yes. Although, actually, you mentioned that you're single now, but when you started Match.com, you were married?
Oh, I was married, yeah, with small children.
Which is quite the opposite of a lot of dating site owners. They start out with the additional inspiration of wanting to actually meet someone.
Oh yeah, they all want to meet more women. It's I'll tell you, it's been funny because I think that added to kind of some of the churn is that almost every CEO who ever ran Match.com, I shouldn't say that exactly, wanted to experiment a bit. No, I think I think from the beginning I recognized that, if you look back in the mid-90s, there were certain applications that if you thought about it really made sense to leverage the online experience. And dating was certainly way up there. Now, the sad story is the rest of the business didn't do so well. Craigslist came along and eBay, of course, and the whole classified thing really went away except for the online personals part or online dating with Match.com.
Of course, Match.com now is a $500 million a year revenue company. Does that surprise you?
No.
Why?
No. A funny story, Mark. I have two children. My younger son, this was a few years back, there was a commercial around Valentine's Day for Match.com. He had a friend over, and he said to his friend, "Oh no, Mom's going to get really bummed out now." On the other hand, we saw that video a few years ago that was very popular called Do You Know?
Yeah.
And one of the statistics was like 4 in 10 marriages or 6 in 10 marriages start online. And he looks over to me and says, "Well, you were part of that."
Yeah.
So I feel good about all of that.
I'm sure the industry particularly appreciates the membership, the fact that you helped out create the memberships. I can't imagine what the industry would be like if it was just based on email sends and the Lava Life model.
Yeah, I don't think that would have succeeded, honestly, in the end. We would have gotten there. But what really surprised me is the price difference. So when we first charged for Match.com, I believe we charged $3.99 a month. Yeah. And if you bought 6 months, it was a much better discount. And of course now it's much more than that. Of course, I think a big difference too is the place the free dating sites have taken.
Yeah.
And I think that's an important model as well.
Now, you're involved with two internet dating startups. Could you tell us about those?
Yeah, so the first one is The Complete Me. And I think it's very unique and very exciting because it really talks about or uses your social graph on Facebook. So it's actually, my experience with it so far has been as an application on Facebook. And you can put in and control what you show about yourself. But because it leverages your social graph, and not just Facebook, Twitter and LinkedIn, again, under your control, people can have a more complete picture about who you are and what your interests are. I think that's kind of neat. I also think that, especially for somebody like me, I'm fairly public. It doesn't take much for somebody to figure out who I really am. So I've decided that, well, anonymity is important. I like this idea. I call it, it's mutually assured disclosure. So yeah, you're going to know about me. You're going to see my Twitter or my LinkedIn profile. I may not share my Facebook profile with somebody I'm going out with. And I want to see theirs. Because at this point in time, concerning everything, I'd rather have them know who I am, I know who they are. And in that respect, I think it's more safe than complete secrecy and anonymity. And I think at this point in my life, that complete anonymity is kind of hard to get.
Right. And of course, this is most pertinent to your background as founder of Trustee.
Yeah, and you know, because of my involvement in overall privacy issues, and you know, in fact, it was Match.com that made me most aware of how important the privacy issues are, and that's how I first associated myself with Trustee. I'm very sensitive to sort of the balance of being able to be private and be able to have control over what you share.
Yeah.
And the way we like to think about privacy at Trustee, it's very much about transparency and choices and control, and then accountability. So if a website or an online dating site makes a promise that they're not going to share your profile, they better not. That would be a violation. And the importance of controlling what you share and who you share it with is extremely, extremely important, especially on any sort of social networking, including online dating. The other one I'm involved with is a 3-day rule. It's a completely different approach, although it shares that social aspect. It's down in Los Angeles, and it's basically events, singles events, high-end, fun, different kinds of experiences. And I'm seeing that this event space, I think, is pretty interesting too. Gets like-minded people. So that's sort of the live thing, and then of course there's the complete me.
Great. Fran Maier, you're the co-founder of Match.com, and I really appreciate your time. Thank you for taking the time to interview today.
Thanks so much. Enjoyed it.